Connecting.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning. It's a privilege to welcome you to this Women in Big Science webinar organized under the framework of Big Science Business Forum. So we are very pleased to host this webinar today, the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So congratulations to all of you and to all of your daughters, the next generation. I am Belén del Cerro, the Spanish Industrial Liaison Officer for ITER and other fusion-related devices, and I am working for CTTI, the Spanish Innovation Agency. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants, especially women across Europe who have shown interest and have registered to this webinar. We hope to meet your expectations. It's also a privilege to welcome our speakers, and I would like to thank all of them for finding time in the busy agendas. Of course, thanks especially to the ED4E team who has made possible this initiative come true. So now let's have a look to the agenda for today. So I am going to share my screen. So with the help of Elizabeth, a leading expert on women in science, who will be our moderator today, and through contributions from representatives of BSBF organizing facilities, the European Commission, industry, and other stakeholders, we will analyze the situation of gender equality, diversity, and inclusion in big science market. And after this, we will have an open discussion with the audience on the establishment of the Women in Big Science Award. So thank you all again for your enthusiasm and for your availability for this webinar. Just to remind you that today's webinar will be a preparatory session for the Women in Big Science satellite session that we are pleased to host in October this year under the umbrella of BSBF. Now, please let me give you some practical instructions. These sessions will be fed by the questions that you submit during the session using the Zoom question and answer module. So please come up with interesting topics, suggestions, or doubts for our panelists to be addressed after the round table and after the open discussion. But please don't use the chat for question and answers. Use the question and answer module instead. The recording of this webinar will be available on the webinar webpage and also the outcome of the discussion that we will have today. Just also to mention that after the webinar, we will kindly request you to fulfill a questionnaire addressing some of the main topics we are going to discuss today. Of course, the results will be anonymized and presented at an aggregate level only. So before we start with the webinar, for those of you not yet familiarized with the Big Science Business Forum, I will steal 5 minutes of the speaker's time to give a brief introduction. As you all know, CTTI is heading the organization of the second edition of the Big Science Business Forum in close collaboration with 11 big science organizations. BSBF is a business-oriented congress which will congregate the main European research infrastructures in the domain of astronomy, fusion, particle physics, space, and biology, and with the aim to be the main meeting point between research infrastructures and industry interested in business opportunities worth more than 37 billion euros in the upcoming years. The Congress will take place in Granada, a beautiful and unique city in Spain, between the 4th and the 7th of October this year, and registration for the event is already open in our webpage. Oh, sorry. So this is a two-day Congress program, and it's structured by technology. So depending on your area of interest, you can sign up to specific technology-oriented parallel sessions. The Congress will also include an industrial exhibition, and BSBF will also host for the first time a technology transfer track with the objective to make technology transfer really happens at BSBF. But the real heart of BSBF is the networking in parallel with the program. So as I mentioned before, today's webinar is organized as a preparation of the BSBF Women in Big Science satellite session that will take place in Granada during BSBF, the 4th of October. The event intends to provide a platform where public organizations and industries operating in big science can share their experience, lessons learned, and best practices on policies to increase the participation of women. It should be also possible to showcase policies to increase the participation of women in big science through the Women in Big Science poster session. And the best one cases will be awarded with tokens of recognitions. The objective of the open discussion we will have today is to agree about what will be the basis for these recognition prizes. And you will have more information later. That's all from my side. Thank you for your attention. And once again, we will be very pleased to come on you in Granada this year. Now I am going to share with you a very short promotional video. Okay, please check the BSBF website. Stay tuned in our social networks, and of course, we are looking forward to seeing you in Granada this year. So now it's for me a pleasure to introduce you Francesca Francini from Ed4E, Fusion for Energy. As I mentioned before, Ed4E has taken the initiative in the organization of this webinar and is also organizing with us the BSBF satellite session devoted to women in big science that will take place in Granada for the first time ever in the history of Big Science Business Forum. Francesca is an engineer with a PhD in heat transfer, and she's currently working in the Test Blanket Model Program as Ed4E Eurofusion coordinator and as a secretary of the Ed4E Technical Advisory Panel. So, Francesca, when you want.
Yes, thank you very much, Belen. Thank you for your presentation and for all the support that you, Virginia, CDTI are given to this initiative. And of course, thank you to the BSBF. I would like, of course, to thank a lot all the speakers that have accepted today to stay with us, and all the audience that join us for this special day of Girls in Science. Thanks to Elizabeth. Thank you very much, Elizabeth Policer, because she helped us to organize and put together this event, doing a lot of interview, and I take also the opportunity to thank all the experts that have accepted to be interviewed for this event. So where this initiative started, like Belen said, it's a group of colleagues of Fusion for Energy. Fusion for Energy is the European organization responsible for the contribution to the European contribution to the ITER project, so the biggest fusion project, and to development of fusion through R&D projects, in particular with Japan. So in FRE, who we are, it's a group of colleagues, as I say. So Pilar Rosado, Susanna Clement, Emma Vigo, Romina Bemelmans, Joe Valory, and Aris Apollonatus. We come all from different backgrounds, but we all have a common passion for our project in general, for the big project. So we thought, okay, we are working in a very, very fascinating project, very fascinating ecosystem. How that should attract a lot of girls and women, but how we can be more attractive, how we can increase inclusion, how we can do better on that. So be convinced that the big science project have a huge potential to improve inclusion of women and have an impact not only in our ecosystem, but also outside. We thought, okay, we should connect, we should open to connect with the other entities that work like us in this ecosystem, both public and private, science and industry, to work together. And we thought that could be very beneficial to share ideas, lessons learned, and create some synergy. So the webinar today is, like you say, first step of a work that we hope will be on long term, to work together to create a common platform for exchange and improve inclusion of women in a big science project, and not only. And last, this event should help us to define an award to prize who is doing well to improve inclusion and to make this ecosystem an example also for the rest of the society. So thanks again to everybody, and have a nice webinar. Now I let Elizabeth Policer, our expert, director of Portia. Portia is an organization that has been working since more than 20 years in issue on gender issue in science, for working on gender issue in science for more than 20 years, and help us a lot with this webinar. So please, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Francesca. That is for this lovely introduction. I'm really pleased to be here. As you said, I've been doing this for 20 years. And for the first time, it is big science. I don't think anybody else has actually talked about gender issues in big science. I'm really delighted that I have this opportunity to make history. I think we are making history. Big science actually is going to address issues for women and diversity in this in a way that is different that has been done so far. So in order to actually know what needs to be done, I was fortunate to be introduced to more than 30 representatives from different organizations to get a feel for what big science is about. And in this webinar, there are two parts. Part one is to provide you with some insights about the existing mechanisms and the way that people already have been working towards gender equality, diversity, and inclusion. And in part two, it will be discussion about what this award about women in big science should look like and what should be its purpose. So we have assembled a panel of 5 members from those whom I interviewed. And also we have invited further representatives to add more information about with further examples of the kind of work that people have been doing and promoting. Questions should be submitted throughout, please, and we will try to answer them at the end. Please make your questions brief, and we will try to, and please direct them at any specific person or to the panel as such. If we don't have enough time to answer all the questions, they will be answered afterwards, after the webinar. So first of all, I would like to introduce the panel that we have. We have Mina Stareva from the European Commission. She's head of gender section at DGRTD. We have Louise Carvalho from CERN. She's a leader on diversity and inclusion program. We have Francesca Primas. She's senior astronomer at the Directorate for Science and ED, and also she's an EDI champion at ESO. Sophie Lemar, she's vice president for France at Westinghouse. And Gillian Partington, she's head of communications and marketing manager at a system. So we will start with Mina Stareva because the European Commission is causing a revolution in how gender issues are going to be addressed in science. So Mina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and good afternoon to all of you. Yes, good afternoon. It's already 12 o'clock here in Brussels. I'm very pleased to be here, actually, to take part in this webinar, preparatory webinar, to discuss, exchange experience on how best to support women in big science, which of course is a new and very important issue. And very importantly for us in the Commission, it is fully aligned with the ambition of Commissioner Gabriel, Commissioner for Education, Research, Innovation, Sports and Culture, to support the pipeline of female talents in the field of research and innovation, and in particular in those fields where actually the biggest gaps remain. So the day of today, of course, is very, very symbolic. Inspirational role models worth celebrating, but I would say that what is extremely important is on the days like this that we actually remind what are the responsibilities of each of us and what do we do so that we make sure that gender equality is a reality in research, that there are more women in big science, that there are more women in STEM, that actually we do support a structural change. Before actually going into a little bit of what are we doing, and probably it is worth saying here that for us actually big science, we understand it as a large-scale research infrastructure, as it was very well presented actually already in the beginning, and thank you very much for the very nice video actually. Well done, great organization. So we do understand, of course, big science as a subset of large-scale research infrastructures program that we fund. We do have memorandum of understandings with Euroforum members and Euroforum actually, and we do address gender equality issues on the agenda of our mutual cooperation. But before going into a little bit more detail on what we do in Horizon Europe, maybe just to provide you with few figures. And these figures, they actually come for our last edition, She Figures edition, which is our pan-European publication monitoring the state of gender equality across Europe. It provides a little bit, it gives us an overview of the reality, I would say, and which for you may be very well known as you live it in your daily life, but still let us know some numbers. Good news overall, that actually we have achieved almost gender parity at the level of PhD graduates. This is not the case when it comes into the specific fields we discussed today. This is not the case when we discuss science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, unfortunately. When we go up into the career ladder, all disciplines considered, only a third of researchers in the EU are women, and numbers are extremely more striking when it comes to the STEM fields. And actually discussing the attraction and the retention of women in big science, but also the reward of women in big science. With the latest She Figures edition, we also paid a specific attention to issues such as work-life balance, institutional culture, but also access to research careers, but also women in leadership and decision-making positions. For the first time we have sun in Brussels. This is really a rare occasion and a very positive sign, I would say. So what we have developed under the She Figures, it's a policy brief with some solutions on how to empower women to take up leadership positions, including some support schemes, mentoring, job sharing, but also setting quotas, providing unconscious bias trainings, and other soft measures such as different types of awards or communication campaigns. So what do we do in Europe? So what do we do at the European Commission level? And again, I really want to stress that when it comes to big science, one could think of big numbers of people, big labs, big teams, and offer far from home. When you stay there, for instance, for the time of your experience, on when you have a slot for the use of a specific facility, often overnight. So this necessarily bring into the picture some work-life balance issues and potentially also some gender-based violence issues, and including sexual harassment. So we are very conscious of this, and within the European Research Area, it's been already for years that we actually support a culture of change and institutional change through the development and implementation of gender equality plans. And actually we have already funded several STEM-oriented gender equality plans, created a community of practitioners where actually we have involved members from several big science labs, from CERN, DESI, ESO, and there is a number already of good practices and advances that exist out there and that can further be used as good practice, and for me big science should build on. We also encourage the connection with professional networks, with the European platform of women scientists, for instance, but also some specific networks, so women's networks. Building on this experience with already funding these projects and creating a huge community of practitioners and knowledge across Europe, we actually have decided that with Horizon Europe, we take a step further. We actually change gears. So we actually strengthen our commitment, and we have introduced a new eligibility criterion as a way really to create a sustainable change within EU, not only targeted measures, not project related, but we actually want that research organizations, public organizations, and higher education establishments have a gender equality plan in place in order to receive funding from Horizon Europe. And of course, issues such as work-life balance, career progression, addressing structural barriers, rewards, and unconscious bias trainings, etc. These are key elements to be included in the gender equality plan, which we consider as either mandatory or strongly recommended areas in order for an entity to be part of a European project. This is one thing, so gender equality plans. Culture of change, this has never been the case. It's really very ambitious, and we should all make sure that actually we are on board into implementing such gender equality plans. And we are actually supporting quite actively organizations across Europe and beyond to understand and to set in place such strategy. But next to this, making European women visible, recognizing their achievements, creating role models, inspirational models is of uttermost importance for Commissioner Gabriel, our commissioner, but also it's enriched and enshrined in our programs. So for instance, We do have the Women Innovators Prize, of course, an annual edition, and the 2022 edition of the Women Innovators Prize will be launched on the 8th of March to celebrate women behind game-changing innovations. This year, to actually acknowledge the year of youth, 2022 is the year of youth, and we actually, and I will finish by this, Elizabeth, we actually have decided to place an important focus on girls and women in STEM in some particular fields where we do see quite a lot of gender imbalances. So we have foreseen quite a lot of activities to support more girls and women in STEM, including, and what is also in the European strategy for universities, a need to develop a STEM manifesto. So Women Innovators Prize, we do have some targeted calls under the European Innovation Council to support women-led companies, women-led initiatives, coaching, mentoring schemes, to nurture the future generation of women innovators and women entrepreneurs. And this year also, we will have for the first time also EU award to actually compensate what we call gender equality champions. So it's an institutional level award to those organizations that are really the leaders walking the game in terms of boosting an inclusive institutional transformation. So I would like to conclude with one sentence for this first intervention is, my understanding of big science, actually. It's, for me, of course, big science, not only for me, it's big interests, big policies, big responsibilities. But this also means that when political decisions are taken, they can have an impact. And women at the head of large-scale research infrastructures, such as, for instance, CERN, but also EMBL, are really the very strong, provide already very strong signals. These are great models for younger women researchers, for aspiring STEM education, for attracting more girls into these specific fields. And these are really the agents of change, which of course, as I started in the context of today, the International Day for Girls and Women in Science are worth celebrating. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mina. And this is a minor revolution going on now in the European Commission to bring all these things together. And so our next speaker is Luis Carvalho from CERN. And Luis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Well, it's a bit of a challenge following on the heels of such experience as we have just heard, but as well it's inspiring. And many of you know, of course, the construct of CERN, but let's recall that CERN is the embodiment of big science and in fact, collaboration in big science with its 23 member states. We have over 4,000 personnel on the CERN payroll, but also 14,000 users from all over the world. Over 100 countries participate or support the CERN collaborations. Our annual budget is over 1 billion, and for this and other reasons, you know, we think of CERN as the European Laboratory for Particle Physics. Now, among these huge numbers of personnel, our female population hovers at around 21%, but in STEM alone, we are much less. We're around the 12% mark. So after many years of individual and institutional efforts to increase this figure, not only in the overall population, but in particular in the science positions, we decided to do something a little more radical. So in March 2021, almost a year ago, now we launched CERN's first ever gender target called 25 by 25. In which the target is to reach 25% of women across the entire employed population of CERN to 25% by the end of 2025. Now, this strategy actually has two objectives, both in gender and in nationality. And I should say at the moment that CERN currently records binary gender statistics. So we are looking at the population of men and women at the moment. I thought it would be a good opportunity, and it's a bit for the first time that I do so, to share some of the major stages of the implementation. For many, many months prior to pitching this idea a year ago to the management, we prepared a compelling and, because it's a scientific organization, an evidence-based pitch of this idea to the Director General. 9 months later, meaning with all the revisions and approvals that needed to get to her attention, and with the Director General's invitation, I was given a 10-minute slot to convince the Executive Directorate to approve the launch. And again, this 10 minutes included a lot of evidence-based rationale about why CERN should move in this direction. And I'm delighted to tell you that last March we had a resounding yes from across the Executive Directorate, with honestly with comments of support verbally at that moment that I would have liked to frame. The accountability of this strategy is not any longer coming just from HR as in the past, but really to come from the top down. And in a big science organization as large as CERN, and with the numbers I told you, you can add up to come to almost 18,000 personnel who all are connected to CERN. I really wanted the top level down to grab the strategy and to be there for the accountability in its implementation. So on the next level down, I invited the 13 department heads, 11 plus 2 directors, to nominate 2 diverse focal points, and I mean diverse in terms of age, gender, seniority, type of contract, to be my interlocutors for the implementation. And they are accountable to their department heads, not to me and not to HR. We just work together with them. So we took then the GDEIB benchmark, it's an international benchmark set, to roll out to all these departments a D&I review exercise. And this exercise is a moment in which they can check and measure the diversity and inclusion maturity level within each of their departments across 7 categories, including recruitment, naturally, but also communications. I'm now finalizing what we call the action menu, from which each department will select actions that best suit their needs and their environment, and to help them improve in those areas over the next few years. The actions they choose will form what we call, in a catchy way, a fitness plan, formal implementation through to the end of 2025, and let's hope beyond there. So the key elements in this strategy that I want for anyone to pay attention to if you're considering something similar in a scientific environment is to keep such strategies evidence-based. You know, it's a scientific crowd, it's a tough crowd, but if you bring in the top level accountability, then seek the engagement from as many people as possible, people who know their immediate environments better than I ever could. And if you keep them reporting to their hierarchy about the progress, then I find the conversation I have already heard occurring in these departments is more positive. Sometimes, of course, with great skepticism, we should expect that, right? But overall, the conversation itself, whether positive or resistant, is already the sign of success. I can provide the tools and the vision, but the engagement and their feedback to each other has been extraordinary, and I consider that already a success. Some examples of the actions that can be chosen are around conscious recruitment and statistical dashboards on gender, activating their own networks, and comms by the department heads. And there are many more for another time, but I did want to take this moment to share with you what has been a new awakening at CERN, which I hope will increase the extraordinary potential of women in science at CERN and beyond. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Louise. So we're not starting from ground zero. We already have a good practices to build on. Having looked at the organization that looks at particles, we're now going to invite Francesca Primus to talk about things being done and looking at the sky. Francesca, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, as Louise just said, if CERN is the laboratory for particle physics, indeed ESO is the laboratory for astronomy. We are as well an intergovernmental organization in science and technology and in astronomy that was established 60 years ago and is supported by 60 member states and our host country Chile and various strategic partners. Our mission is to build, to construct and operate ground-based facilities, observing facility for astronomy. And as such, in this role, we have a leading role in promoting and organizing cooperation in the astronomical research field and in the astronomical community. So big science for us, I think, means indeed what was already said, right? So I mean, it's about the big infrastructures that we are building. And it is as well the big community that we are serving, to which basically we are providing services in order to make new discoveries about, in our case, about our universe. So I think that ESO has been working very actively in EDI matters and EDI matters. And in fact, diversity and inclusion is among the top ESO values. And the focus has been indeed to try to enable a very inclusive environment. And on top, of course, of the usual, I would say, or most common policies about flexible working schemes and parental leaves and so on, I would like to connect this to something that was said before at the beginning by the EU Commissioner. Indeed, we have code of conducts, for instance, for not only for our scientific meetings or technical meetings, but especially for the visiting astronomers. So for our visitors to our observatories, our facilities are all located in Chile. And we do have policies in place, for instance, to prevent and react on harassment. Now, if I want to highlight a few initiatives, I think that we participate very actively to international projects and international networks. And I think that this is a very powerful way to raise awareness and to have EDI topics actually discussed with a broader audience. And this comparison among different international organizations, I think that they are very useful because they trigger some important cascade effects, because you compare and you learn and you share the best practices. We have a D&I committee at ESO that reports directly to the Director General, who, by the way, I just saw it is among the audience. So you see at which level we have the support, and ESO is committed to these topics and to improve our environment. I think that the one initiative that I would really like to highlight is we have a partnership with United Nations Women in Chile, and we are participating to their Second Chance program, which is called Tu Oportunidad, which is a worldwide initiative, but that has been currently developed only in 6 countries, and Chile is one of them. The objective is to empower women, economically empower women who have not completed their formal education and we do that via specialized training. So ESO, I'm very happy to announce it here, has just started the first training program at ESO Paranal, so at our flagship observatory. And we are training 7 women who are living in Chile, because the program is for women living in Chile. These were selected by the United Nations Women Program, and they have just started the training on something very important, a very delicate operation for the astronomical research, for astronomical facility, which is the telescope mirrors recoating. And with the hope that then they will have better employment opportunities in the job market. And as you may know, I mean, there are a lot of telescope facilities and observational facilities in Chile, and we also hope, of course, to retain some of these women. Along the same lines, I mean, in the same framework of a collaboration with the UN Women, I mean, we have also ESO staff involved with a Chilean foundation and a company, and they will soon engage in a 3 to 4 months training program, training students so that, I mean, they can further develop their more technical skills via practical tutoring sessions. So I think that this actually brings back also that we try to increase the opportunities of women in finding better jobs. Now, I think that one of the, I will conclude just by mentioning a few things that the Diversity and Inclusion Committee has achieved in his analysis and in his work. We have so far issued some important recommendations, one of which was about to have more equity, diversity and inclusion in our communication products, because this is what we are facing towards the outside, what we are bringing to the community at large. And as well as our focus was on try to improve or find the ways better ways to make the hiring process more equitable. And I touch about hiring because I believe that hiring and retentions are very important steps in order to try to change. Once you have enabled policies, once you have established a more enabling environment, then those are the stumbling blocks where we need to attract more women, especially in some fields, and then we need to retain them. And I think that there are different ways to these two aspects, depending on the professional profiles that we're looking. And at our organization, actually, we have different profiles in a sense that we have astronomers who do astronomical research, and where we have a fair representation, let's say, at least gender-wise, among the pool of applicants. And so I would say that here, for instance, the focus is more on career development and retention. While, for instance, as soon as we move, as we have already heard today, to the engineering aspects, to the engineering field, the issue happens much earlier than hiring. So we need to be significantly more attractive. And of course, we suffer from, as anybody else, from the extremely low number of female engineers that are coming out of university. So this is where the area where we need to work on in order to bring more women into this specific field. So I think that we are working, we are very active. We have EDIs, as I said, as among our top values. And I think that this is all going in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Francesca. It's really good to hear, especially about those women returners. I think there's a huge talent pool out there that could be retrained. So we have had now views and examples of practices from two large research infrastructures. So now we can move to industry, and I invite Sophie Lemaire, who is Vice President for France for Westinghouse, to tell us what Westinghouse is doing.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Very inspiring. I'm so honored being part of this panel with great big science members. So Westinghouse is a pioneer and leader in the nuclear industry. Is a true technology company where science is actually part of our DNA. So we are not a research institute. Obviously, we are more an industry company, but we have a lot of commonalities, and I hear a lot of echo to what others said in that panel so far. So that's great. Our mission really is to advance technology and services to power a clean, carbon-free future and climate change is one of our biggest challenge, obviously, in the coming years. Being an industrial company focused on commercial reactor along all their life cycle, from the design, the construction, the operation, and then the decommissioning, we work very closely with many big science organizations. And we are very proud of supporting big science projects, including ITER projects. So I feel really very close to this community, obviously. Now, what are we practically doing at Westinghouse to promote women in science more generally, and in our industry more specifically? Of course, we have several women in executive position in Westinghouse. I would say it seems obvious today, but I can tell you that 10 years ago, it was maybe not that obvious. And if you look at the executive org chart of Westinghouse 10 years ago, we had very, very few women in leadership position. But we wanted to go one step further. So the company created a chief diversity officer position 2 years ago, and this position reports to our CEO and is really focused on driving equality, diversity, and inclusion culture in the company, in our workforce, in our workplace, and in our marketplace. So it goes beyond just inside Westinghouse, at least that what we are trying to achieve. And she doesn't work alone, our chief diversity officer. She really developed a network in each part of the organization with the aim to promote the vision and culture change. And this is a day-to-day effort, I would say, to always promote our action, give visibility to women, measure the DEI perception through survey, because it starts as well by recognizing that we have some progress to be done in the company. So it's also about communicating about what needs to be improved, considering the results of those surveys and the perception of our workforce, our employees, about where do we stand with diversity, inclusion, and equality in Westinghouse. Of course, this team and this network is also sponsoring our actions to promote women leadership. One key, for me, key way or key tool we can use is mentoring of diverse talents. And I really, I mean, I did it myself a couple of times for young women, and I think it really, and I had actually a chance when I was younger in my career to be mentored by women with more seniority, and I truly believe to this transmission in the company about okay, we can do it, we have the potential, and we can be trusted by the company to develop our talent in the company. And the last item I wanted to mention is the nuclear industry is very active in promoting nuclear in the industry through women in nuclear organizations. So Westinghouse is part of this community in several countries, and we are working in the industry to attract more talents, more women talents, and there's again, this is something that we can always do more, and we have many opportunities to make a difference in many areas, and it actually starts from the way we educate our girls, our daughter, if we have the chance to be mothers, and encourage them to discover science when they are very young, and if they have an appetite for that, and encourage those girls to engage in science studies. And we know, if you look at the statistics, that very few teenager girls are ready to engage in this career. So it's really up to us to again, I spoke about transmission, to tell them, okay, you can do it. I mean, that's a great career. You will have great opportunities. You will have fun in your work. So just go. And then they start their career in the more professional landscape. Then it's really up to the companies to work on hiring women. And I like very much what Francesca said about hiring, because I really believe as well in this being a great opportunity to think out of the box sometimes. And when you have 5 male candidates for a position and 0 female, that's something wrong. So let's just push it a little bit further to create the opportunity for women. And then finally, again, I spoke about networking, mentoring. Really, for me, we need to realize that sometimes the biggest barrier for women to take leadership in the industry can sometimes be women themselves. So we absolutely need to help them to realize that their potential and learn to dare to take more leadership. That's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for giving me the opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sophie. That's really good to hear about the work that the industry is doing. We have another speaker was going to be Gillian Partington, but I think she's having problems connecting. So I would like, as we are in a following with the industry, so maybe I could invite Chelsea Russo, because she's from Ferrovial and I know she's connected. Chelsea, is just putting you on spot to stand in right now?
I can speak, Elizabeth, if that's okay. Or I'm available as well, whatever you think best. Not putting me on the spot at all. So just let me know which you'd prefer.
All right, Gillian, so you are here, are you?
I am here. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so you go.
My connectivity is okay, which is good. Thank you, Elizabeth. And it was really, really interesting to hear all the speakers this afternoon. Very, very inspiring to me. So just a quick intro about me and ACER STEM. So I'm Jill Partington. I'm ACER STEM's International Communications Manager. And ACER STEM is an international engineering and digital services group. We're 7,000 strong globally. We're also the #2 nuclear engineering company in the world. And that links us very strongly to big science through fusion. We're architect engineer at ITER, as well as supporting other projects at ITER, and fusion engineering internationally as well, specifically the UK on JET and the soon-to-be STEP reactor. So really what I wanted to speak about today is our recruiting missions in terms of how we are attracting and retaining women within our company. So I think it's fair to say that ACER STEM is at the front line of 2 challenges at the moment in terms of recruitment. The first one is finding the right people to support the design and construction of an unprecedented number of low carbon energy projects that are being planned at the moment, and technologies like fusion that are still in development. And the second challenge really is what I'm here to talk to you about today, is that how do we make sure that women hold a significant and ideally equal share of the technical and influential roles on these projects. So ACER STEM really considers the risk posed by the lack of gender diversity on low carbon projects as a real risk, not just to those projects, but to our company and to society as a whole. It's why since 2010, we've had our Incredible Woman Gender Diversity Programme, which operates across 3 pillars in the business, which is the strategy is to recruit more women to the company, but also to attract more girls to STEM subjects and encourage their excitement around STEM and those careers, to make sure that we retain women when we attract them to our company, and to support their evolution into senior roles within the business as their career progresses. So today I'd really like to talk around one case study that is focused around the recruiting pillar of Incredible Woman. And this is a particular strategy that we're deploying since 2021 to attract more women to nuclear roles in the UK. So why are we doing this? So we're acutely aware that there are very, very low numbers of women in our engineering pipeline in the UK to recruit from at the graduate level. So to give you a fact here to back this up, for the past few years, of those studying engineering degrees at undergraduate level in the UK, 19% of those are women. And this is further reduced when they complete their degrees and they look to make choices around their career options. And in engineering, certainly in nuclear, there has been historically and is today a high barrier, a high entry level requirement for our graduates. So really we are looking for the best of the best candidates coming from really excellent and highly regarded academic institutions, coupled with their first class honours degrees and masters. And not only that, many of these candidates, we do expect from them to have work experience in the bag as well. So we can see how we end up in the scenario where we're not able to recruit nearly enough women into the sector. Okay, so ACER STEM really looked at this and thought about what can we do to support the technical development of women as they join us if they were to come from a broader pool of STEM. So we know that in the UK, there is a much broader and bigger numbers of women studying STEM subjects at university, which is around 35%. So A-System in 2021 trialled a new graduate scheme that was aimed at attracting more women to careers in nuclear by opening the door to women who were studying a broader pool of subjects in STEM. And we could do this on the basis of providing technical training through our A-System Nuclear Institute. The other thing that we did is that we focused on making the sector more attractive by really promoting the why, doing a better job of selling nuclear as a vital technology that will enable the energy transition, and really inciting excitement from those who we wish to join us around this challenge that we face. So our vision here was really investing in a pool of technically capable women who will have options to work on a number of technologies with us throughout their career, whether it be nuclear fission or fusion or other low carbon technologies as they develop. Our total investment in the project is 5 million, and this is to attract at least 100 women to technical roles in nuclear by 2025. And the good news is that 1 year in, we're already seeing the impact of the technical graduate scheme as the percentage of women in the UK business has grown from 25% to 38% by the end of 2021. So really, in summary, this project is just one part of our major corporate programme that is focused on putting women at the centre of energy transition projects through recruitment strategies, retention strategies, and investment in their evolution within the company. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. We have done our first panel. Thank you. It was absolutely wonderful to hear all these examples and stories. We have 4 minutes left for the part 1, so that's not unusual to always overrun. I would just like maybe ask one representative from the second group of experts in EDI, and then I think maybe in the second part we will give opportunity for them to present the others to present their examples whilst we're talking about the award itself. So Sehila Gonzalez de Vicente from IAEA, if you're ready, would be really nice to have you speak now.
Thank you very much. I'm ready. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this really important and very interesting event. I'm Sehila Gonzalez, Senior Fusion Physicist at the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, located in Vienna, for those who doesn't know, in Austria. I have to say that the agency is a very good example from the gender equality top-down commitment approach. Because when our Director General Grossi took office in 2019, he set the goal of achieving gender parity in professionals and high categories by 2025, which is really, really ambitious, and he is very, very committed with that. The representation of women in these categories at that time was 32%, so from 32 to 50% in only 6 years. This is a strong commitment. By the end of 2021, we reached 37%. So we are on track, still work to be done, but with good perspective. So how to manage to get that level of parity? So at that time, the agency adopted temporary special measurement for the achievement of gender parity. And 3 main measurements were put in place. The first thing, and it's something that based on what we have here in from the previous speaker, is a common problem. So encourage more women to apply for vacancies. We need to attract talent, women with talents, and this is always a problem. We have other measurements in creating the condition for more balanced representation of women in all departments, because here at the agency we have different departments, and this is not equally, the level of women is not equal in all of them. In some cases, it's really very low. In other cases, a little bit better. So women should be present in all aspects, in particular in very technical aspects. And then establishing monitoring mechanisms. Some of the examples of this initiative include the introduction of a gender-neutral language and terminology in job descriptions. Another important point is the reinforcement of presence of women on interview panels and the implementation of strategic and targeted outreach activities to increase the number of incoming applications for women. Again, we need to have more women candidates at the interviews, so more chances to get the job. These targeted outreach activities include the reviewing of online professional profiles of women experts and encouraging potential candidates to apply for open vacancies. We also do some extra outreach, using social media and send the monthly newsletter. We also have a series of webinars, really interesting, on technical topic with the idea to show, in particular, women what is the nature of the work, what they can do, and to project, to make them to project themselves in this kind of roles. So it should be something normal for them to apply to that kind of job, and they should be able to understand this is a job for everyone. I have to mention also that on the International Women's Days in 2021, the agency signed a practical arrangement with the global chapter of Women in Nuclear. The idea is to attract people, women from everywhere in the world, to have a geographical diversity. This is also a very important point here at the agency, and to attract talent, to get mentoring and training. I would like to mention also, as a really fantastic initiative that started here at the agency a couple of years ago, is the creation of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship Program. This program aims to support new generation of women leaders in nuclear science and technology, nuclear safety and security, and non-proliferation. So this program provides grants for students, women students, from many countries to receive education and training in nuclear fields. In the first year that initiative took place was last year. We have more 1,000 applicants and 100 grants were given to students from 71 different nationalities from 40 countries to study in 40 different countries. In the second round, we have also something around 1,000, more than 1,000 applicants, and 110 grants were given. So this is real action to bring girls into the nuclear field. And finally, I would like to mention what we are doing in fusion. I'm fusion person. I'm the senior fusion at the agency, and the largest event in fusion that we have is in the world is organized by the agency, is the so-called Fusion Energy Conference. We started it takes place every second year, and last year we have the edition corresponding to 2020, and we have a side event on women in fusion. It was the very first time that we did something like that. It was a webinar, and we have already, the webinar is on YouTube. You can find it, is Women in Fusion. We have already 2,000 visitors, 2,000 people watching the video. And thanks to that, we decide, in a group of people, we decide to set up Women in Fusion as a global network. I have to say, this is, we are a group of very enthusiastic people working hard. And in this for Fusion for Energy and ITER are playing a major role. They are really committed, I can tell you. We have every Friday we have a meeting. So this afternoon I will have a meeting with them to set up. The first thing that we are doing is to set up the website and to start to the activities within this year. So you should be able to learn about that more in deep very soon. And just to finalize, I would like to mention the 4 main goals of this group. The first thing is to seek gender parity within the fusion community. The second one is to seek the establishment of a friendly working environment for everyone, paying attention to diversity through gender equity. The third one, to acknowledge contribution made by women in fusion science, which is really important. And I would like to mention the example of Eurofusion, that a lot of women were presented the result a couple of days ago about this fantastic experiment at JET. This is a very good sign. And fourth, of course, to promote fusion as a clean energy source. And with that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sehila. So it's really very encouraging to hear all of those things and very good examples. As I said, we have some further examples that we try to bring in the part 2. Can we now take a break and meet again at 1:15 to discuss these ideas for the award and to also to hear the additional examples of the best practices that are being developed. So we see you in 10 minutes. Apologies for cutting into your break, but hopefully it is all right with everybody. See you later.
We can continue, Elizabeth, if you want.
Oh, good. Very good. So it's 12:15 and we're restarting this webinar. We shall proceed now into discussion about this award, because I think that was one of those important things that we want your input in order to make it a complete ready product for the October meeting of Big Science Business Forum. So there was a great deal of discussion about what this award should be like and for what purpose and what it could achieve. Of course, there are many awards and quite a few for women in science, but not women in big science. So this is the distinct characteristic of what we're trying to get it right. Yes. So in the discussions the vision that we have now is that this award is going to be at 3 levels. Level 1 will be to individual organizations that have made real effort and good progress on advancing women in big science. The second level will be for organizations that collaborate together, so either 2 or a cluster of organizations and institutions, and who do something jointly and share best practice and develop best practice together. And level 3 would be for the impact of big science on society and making big science relevant to society as well. So what I would like you to do is to keep thinking about how you see if those levels make sense, what kind of a criteria to use for each level of the award, and what kind of an impact this award should have. And please put your comments to a question and answer. So far, we received very interesting comments from a number of people, and suddenly the big science is not just a big science in Europe, but it's a global big science, because we had a very interesting comments from Indonesia, from Kenya, and from South Africa. So this is wonderful. So while you're thinking about this award, so remember, do the 3 levels make sense? What criteria to use for each level of the award, and what impact we want to achieve. And by the way, there is going to be a survey available, so if you don't manage to think about these answers to this, you will be able to respond through the survey, and we hope that you're going to communicate that survey to all people in your networks. So while we are thinking, I would like to give chance for the other representatives from Big Science to tell us more about the kind of work that has already been done. And if I would like to start with Roshni Muniram from EMBL. Roshni, are you there? Oh.
Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here. I'll keep this brief. I've really enjoyed hearing from all of you. I'm the head of the Quality, Diversity and Inclusion Office at EMBL, the European Molecular Biology Lab, which is supported by 27 member states and has 6 sites in Europe, in Barcelona, Grenoble, Hamburg, Heidelberg, Kingston, and Rome. And we host we have 1,800 members of personnel. So the advancement of women in science has been a priority at EMBL for the last 8 or so years. And in 2021, the organization decided to take a much more proactive and structured approach to advancing gender parity in science. And we set up governance structures in order to ensure that all of our EDI work would be done in the long term, that it would be sustainable, measurable, that we would have mechanisms for accountability, that would have the buy-in of our leaders. So we set up an EDI office that I had with 2 colleagues, and we set up an EDI governing body that is chaired by our Chief Operating Officer, and with the help of senior scientists at EMBL and the head of human resources and external relations. The EDI governing body helps to helps us guide our decisions in relation to EDI. And then there is the EDI forum, which consists of volunteers across EMBL, volunteers from across all of our sites, from across different functions, volunteers who represent the different diversity characteristics, including gender. So across these three units, we take decisions, we gather input and then take decisions with regards to EDI. One of the first things we did last year was to do a first EDI survey at EMBL, which allowed us to gather qualitative and quantitative data with respect to the EDI profile of EMBL, and it allowed staff to raise concerns about their main issues regarding EDI, but also, and equally importantly, their aspirations about EDI for the organization. So based on this data, then we created EMBL's first EDI strategy, which we're very happy to share with our friends and partners. And this strategy focuses on 4 axes over the next 5 years. The first axis is the people axis. How are we going to attract, support, promote diverse groups of people at EMBL, and women in particular? The second axis is how we are going to build the principles of equality, diversity, and inclusion into all of our processes, so that EDI becomes part of how we think and feel and do our jobs at EMBL. The third axis supports that sense of an ecosystem, and it revolves around inclusive and creating an inclusive research culture and inclusive leadership. And we think this axis is, several colleagues have mentioned the importance of cultural transformation and the importance of getting the buy-in of our leaders. And I think that axis is particularly strong and important and allows us to work in the long term. And our fourth axis is an external facing axis. How do we then use that EDI capital that we generate in order to engage with and positively influence our environment? So we produced our gender equality plan, which is supported by the wider EDI strategy. I'm just going to refer to 2 initiatives from our action plan with regards to gender equality. The first one is LEAP, an initiative that we created last year at EMBL. LEAP is the Leadership and Excellence for Aspiring Postdoc program. And we created a bespoke program for women postdocs who aspire for leadership positions in academia. And so the first program was for 20 women. It was very successful. The different components of the program are mentoring from our alumni, which was a very strong component, one-to-one coaching, leadership training, peer learning, action learning, and networking. And the results of the first LEAP program have been very positive. Several of our LEAP postdocs are already in position as leaders. So we are now going to run LEAP 2 after the success of LEAP 1, and we've been able to get the funding to do this in 2022. So we are going to be able to get another 20 women through this program of transformative leadership. And this time around, we really want to equip them so that they are not we want to equip them so that, of course, they end up in leadership positions as women scientists, but that they're also equipped to create inclusive environments wherever they go, and therefore create a ripple effect beyond EMBL. The second initiative is Helping Hands, and this is also for women postdocs at EMBL. And we want to recruit technicians in order to support women who go on maternity leave. Just before they go on maternity leave, to ensure that their research is being carried out, to support that research whilst they are on maternity leave, and then to give them extra support when they come back, and that will help to close that gap that is exacerbated by women going on maternity leave. So we're delighted to be here today because the World Economic Forum tells us it will be more than 100 years before we can close the gender gap globally, and it's 100 years we don't have, and we're very, very keen to work in partnership with other organizations, because that will allow us to work faster and more efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roshni. I will come back to you a little later on your thoughts for the award, but in the meantime, can I ask Chelsea Russo to tell us what is happening at Ferrovial, because you do have an award that you're already for women.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all today. And it's so nice to see how many people have joined, and just very inspiring and informative webinar. So I am from the United States, but I work for Ferrovial, based in Madrid, Spain, in the talent area of human resources. So for those of you who may not be familiar, Ferrovial is one of the world's leading infrastructure organizations with over 80,000 employees worldwide. We are currently participating in an award called WISE, or Women in Construction and Engineering Award. This is a very prestigious award for European women, but it's for European women around the world. So we have many women that are currently nominated. These women have been nominated by leadership, and leadership is responsible to provide up to a 300-word letter providing examples and backings of why this individual has been nominated, why they've been chosen. There's many categories, such as nominated woman and mentorship category, project manager, engineer, and so on. So as part of that, Ferrovial has internally launched some training specifically for these women who have been nominated. And some of these trainings include how to overcome barriers to women in leadership, saying yes to opportunities, and so on. Part of this training, and outside of these nominees as well, is a global mentorship program, wherein we're ensuring that women are not only mentored themselves, but are also serving as mentors in order to act as role models. We believe it's extremely important to ensure that there are more women in leadership and in role model positions, so employees can see that there is opportunity for those like themselves. We are also striving for Spain's top 30 companies with best practices in diversity and inclusion, as well as Europe's top 50 companies for diversity. We also nominate sponsors to commemorate key dates, such as International Day of Women and Girls in Science and International Women in Engineering Day. We nominate individuals and provide internal awards from Ferrovial on all of these categories and demonstrate their involvement, because we have women that are very involved in associations and organizations specific to female talent inside universities, outside universities. And we also have men in these programs, because we believe it's extremely important for men to also be ambassadors and sponsors of change. So these are some of the awards that we're currently pursuing, and we have a very strategic diversity strategy in place, starting at talent recruitment, attraction, leadership and development, trainings, and this is just one aspect of that. So thank you for letting me share.
Good, thank you very much, Chelsea. The one thing that in our discussions we felt that we shouldn't really go for is the prizes for individuals, because we're talking here big science and a culture change, and that requires some powerful agents of change, which means the organizations themselves. So thank you very much. The last person I would like to invite is Thomas Berghafer from DESI. I know Thomas because we worked on a Genera project together. And one thing that stuck in my mind was that physicists like to solve problems. They don't like just to talk about problems. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, starting with problems is always a problem. No, Genera Network, that is currently coordinated by me. It is an initiative that came out of a European project, the Genera project, that was active between 2015 and 18. There we met some friends, or we were a consortium of physics research institutes, and we had organizations like Elizabeth Portia and another organization from Austria that were deep into the gender equality studies and had lots of knowledge on this. And the purpose of the project was to develop gender equality plans. So all this knowledge that we gained during this project, we are now offering to all our partners in this network, Genera Network. And Genera Network is currently growing. We are in the moment more than 40 organizations that come together with annual meetings with the General Assembly. We have monthly meetings with all the active people in our network. And what we don't have is a prize, but maybe some ideas where are the places where you could release or come up with a prize to encourage colleagues, institutions to go for gender equality. So while we were coming together, we said, okay, we are institutions, but at the end, other forms of get-togethers wanted to join Genera Network as well, like collaborations. So collaborations can be rather big. For example, the Atlas collaboration that is working at CERN has more than 160 institutions involved. So can you imagine? There are 160 institutions. Every institution has nowadays a gender equality plan, and these 4,000 people working together are working under 160 different gender equality plans. So any idea how to make this work and everybody understands what is meant by gender equality, I think this is worth a prize. And also another example, what knocked on our door or where we are attached to is the European Synchrotron and FAL user organization. So I think it took quite a while for them to understand what they could do for users. So there in this organization are many institutions with synchrotrons that they are hosting, and there are coming thousands of users every year. And you have an interesting get-together between the host and the collaborating institutes. So I could imagine that here is a lot of interesting things going on, which are worth to look at, and perhaps the nicest ones could be good examples to be honored with a prize and shown to others. Please take this as a good example and maybe adopt it to your needs. And so this could be having a big impact on research, big science at all, right? Another field that is completely avoided by gender equality is the planning construction of new infrastructures. So this is what I was following the last 20 years, the S3 process. When you go to this website, there are lots of roadmaps and paperwork that you can download, but the word gender does not exist in all these documents, or you find it at one place in the CV of one of the work package or work program leaders, our colleague Anna from Bulgaria, but that's it. So lots of things to do. So I could speak hours on Genera Network. If you want to know more, please get in contact with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. That made me think about Sweden, and Sweden is building a new infrastructure, and Sweden has got a feminist government, and there's a network of Big Science Sweden of 150 organizations that is funded by 2 research funding organizations in Sweden who are totally bought into their gender equality. So the question is for me, for Sweden, is can this new facility have a culture that is welcoming to women and diversity and inclusion? So I think now we have 25 minutes. So I would like to just go from all the speakers that we had and ask them to make a comment on these plans for the award, because we're going to take all those views together and try to have a consensus on what kind of a big science award would make sense that could be also achieved, because in the end we need organizations to be nominated, and so we need to know what criteria to use in order to judge them in their efforts and achievements. So basically, as just to repeat, we have an idea of this 3-level prize within an organization, within a collaboration between organizations, and in impact and relationship with society. And then what we need to, does this make sense to you? What kind of a key criteria that we should think about, and what sort of impact we want to achieve apart of rewarding the agents of change? Because in a sense, the prize could be like a publicity to schools and outside world to say, there's a fantastic careers for women in big science. Just look at this, all those role models at this cultural transformations taking place. And I would please invite all the participants to use the question and answer and give us your feedback. So maybe I will start with Sophie. Sophie, would you like to give us your thoughts on this plans for the award? Okay, Sophie is not connected. Louise, come on, maybe you could make it a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. I think as you and I discussed, and I'm now just coming to mind of free thinking, if we want to at the same time find this dynamism between individual recognition and group, and there are benefits to both, I wonder if we can think about collaborations or between organizations or between teams that is led by a female. So you've got at the same time perhaps an innovation or maybe even a way of working of a group or a collaboration that is spearheaded or led by a female scientist. I wonder if that might be a criteria that helps us to narrow down some of the many options we may be faced with.
Very good and practical idea. Thank you. Is there anybody else that has got a really practical ideas that we could put on the table?
Hi, Elizabeth. One thought really from myself on behalf of ASystem is whether we could look at this award being a way that we could create a pilot project. ASystem is very interested in the idea of collaboration with similar companies and obviously extending to companies in the R&D space as well. Thinking about how we can develop a model, particularly in terms of promoting STEM subjects in schools that we could test for 1 year, and that this could be then something that could be replicated in a much broader field if it was seen to be successful. So this is, I think, plays really to the collaboration award, part of the award.
Wonderful, thank you very much, Gillian. Anybody else can volunteer to give us some comments? Roshni, I mean, you must have good ideas.
Hello, I'm interested in particular on impact on society and that crossover with working with schools. I think, as Gillian was saying, a pilot project in the direction of us working with schools collaboratively would be a really, really good idea. Because this is where it all starts. The discrepancies and the gaps starts in the schools and in relation to gender stereotypes that are in place there.
Right. Yes, indeed. And especially in she figures, it's very clear that in certain aspects, certain parts of the STEM pipeline, there's really a lot of effort needs to be made to feed the beginning of the pipeline, because not in life sciences, that's okay there, but not in the engineering and physical sciences. So this is a really an important thing to consider. I'm just looking for Maria. I haven't given you a chance to speak yet.
Yeah.
Maria,
Hello.
so you are based at ITER, aren't you?
Good afternoon. Yes, I work in ITER for several years now for the construction of the buildings and infrastructure. I have to say it's quite encouraging hearing all of you, because me personally, I'm not really involved in development of initiatives as the ones you have described here, but it's quite encouraging to see that many people work very hard on this. Maybe I can comment on the first level of the award you described, which is within the organization.
Okay.
So thinking about specific criteria to set for that award, the obvious one would be the recruitment, gender equality-based recruitment. But another criteria which is less obvious and maybe more difficult to measure or to quantify is once the recruitment strategy set and satisfactory, let's say, how to keep these women inside the organization, and most importantly, how to give them the opportunity to succeed, actually, to develop their career and to succeed. This is something I'm personally sensibilized on. There needs to be a plan, both in terms of facilitating the work professional life balance and the maternity leaves, etc., but also how to get the opportunity to get trainings, or also the development within the organization. So giving promotions and allowing them to get positions within the organizations which are usually occupied by men. And I'm not talking only about leadership positions, but also high technical positions and high scientific positions. That's regarding the first level of the award. Then obviously the third level concerning the impact on society, well, I pretty much agree with was it Roshni who spoke earlier? How to bring young generations into science first, and second, how, let's say, once we get their attention, how to convince them that certain stereotypes that we know since years can actually change.
Zoe? Hello, come.
So yes, we've got, I think these two aspects need to be developed at the same time. So not only attracting young girls into the science, but also convincing them that that once they go to university and once they apply for jobs, they will actually get the opportunity to not be seen as a less privileged category.
Right, indeed. Thank you. I was really interested in Thomas's comment about Atlas, because it seems to me that what is really special about big science is that there are all these networks and collaborations and teams. And so it would make sense to actually, for an impact, to try to really focus on this possibilities where people can take action together And Mina Stareva has mentioned communities of practice. So maybe one way to go around it is to develop this concept of communities of practice within a big science. And I know that there's already a number of networks where people meet in order to share ideas and the practices. Because if we think about Atlas, and I think Thomas said, how many were there? At least 100 different organizations. If they all have a gender equality plan, do we need some kind of a strategy of harmonizing the actions across all the Atlas participants? Has anybody got a comment about how one would deal with this kind of a collaborative efforts towards advancing women? Because one thing could be is to enable a better career development for women. For instance, by everybody agreeing to share this dual career possibilities, where the woman and the man can find a job and can move and can be mobile and not sacrifice their own careers. Is there anybody who would like to mention something on that? Maybe Francesca, you are representing women in nuclear. What's your thoughts on that? Not Francesca, Joël. It was Joël representing women in nuclear.
You mean talking about networking and getting people together?
The possibility of different institutions and partners that collaborate together to adopt a joint strategy for a dual career couples, for example.
Probably this would be difficult to institutionalize, right? So we can do it individually, taking the best practice from others and discuss and exchange and have the mentoring program, but it would require a big effort, I think, to make this an institutional exchange, right? But it would be a good idea.
Would be good. Okay. I saw a Sophie, you tried to use the camera.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's fine.
I'm sorry, I had IT issues. So yeah, just a reflection as well that probably COVID situation brought some new way of working that also gives us some more flexibility and probably some more opportunity to deal with this dual career constraints, I would say. We hear a lot of people, who are now considering living in a different region compared to where they used to live and working remotely, and many companies, and that's the case in Westinghouse actually. We work flexibly much more than what we used to do, because we realized through COVID that it's actually possible. And not only it's possible, but it also offers better quality of life for our employee and better productivity, because we don't waste so much time just in transportation every morning to go to the office. So I think it's also something that we need to think with a different perspective compared to what we used to think about before this pandemic, which brought a lot of bad things, but also brought some good things about new way of working and new way of considering our the implication of each member of the family to his work. And we can work from anywhere in many different occasions. I mean, most of us now are in different places. We're having this webinar, just working together, creating some ideas, and it's easy. So I really want that we realize we can think this very differently compared to what we used to think just two years ago.
Yes, indeed. I think that's a very good point. We all have learned actually how much we can do just working from our homes. There's a very interesting comment from Nadir Hashim, who suggests that actually not only organization level and not only society, but also think about the award at the national level. So because of different countries, so we could reward particular countries that provide the political and policy framework that enables organizations to have a better cultures. And this is definitely, seems to be really, from talking to people in preparations for it, it seems to me that there is really some very important point, because the interviewees in Italy and in Spain and in Sweden have actually highlighted the fact that there is a political will and expectations towards gender equality and diversity and inclusion in institutions that has got an influence on what is actually happening inside the institutions. So we might have to add another category, which is really the sort of a for countries that are advancing the right political policy conditions that then that require institutions to respond, which would connect to the European Commission's European research area or ambitions, where member states are expected to also satisfy the criterion on gender equality. Is anybody would like to comment on this idea that also go for the countries and nations? Chelsea, I mean, your company works with different countries, so are there differences in terms of what can be done on the gender equality and attracting women in different countries? Is there do you follow that data?
Yes, we do. And I think someone mentioned earlier that there are limitations that we're experiencing around the world in terms of the percentage of women that we even find in some of these STEM positions and in the programs enrolled in the universities. So when we set KPIs and metrics for the amount of women that we should hire, that we should involve in the interview and selection process, we do have to bear in mind what limitations we're against. So in other words, if we have a 40% goal of women in the company, but we're up against an 18% women that are actually enrolled in the program in the universities, there is some restrictions there. However, we have to make concerted efforts. We've seen differences from country to country, and we have implemented percentages and KPIs and targets that meet those specific countries that are realistic, because what we don't want to do is create such high expectations and not deliver and feel that it's not attainable. So we started very high and have had to adjust those KPIs and metrics in different countries around the world. But certainly I can see that we're seeing more awareness across all of the global operations that we have, across all of the nations. But I see we of course need the support at the national level, and I see the value in looking at a national award for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Louise, your hand is raised.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't know if this perhaps dovetails well with your proposition, but bearing in mind that some of us, I don't know if we're speaking mostly to national or international organizations, but for the international organizations family like ASO, EMBL, CERN, we are governed by a council of representatives of the member states, who have formed these organizations and who provide the budget. And I'm just throwing out there whether there might be some networking from those same countries that support all these organizations. Let's imagine Sweden, the representatives for these international organizations from that same country may well wish that we collaborate with a similar agenda, similar target.
Very good. Okay, I think we just have a 5 minutes left, and maybe Belen, would you like to complete and this webinar?
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks once again to all our incredible women participating in this webinar, and to Ed4E and you, Elizabeth, for being moderating this interesting and inspiring webinar. We are now arriving to the end with the closing remarks. So now it's a pleasure for me to introduce you Pilar Rosado from Ed4E. Pilar is a Spanish lawyer with a second degree in the European Union law, and she is working for Ed4E as a senior legal officer for the broader approach on other programs. So Pilar, when you want.
Thank you, Belen. Yeah, so I'm here for the closing remarks. I would like to, insist again in the thank yous. Thank you to these very wonderful women that have participated as panelists. So I thank you very much, Mina Estereva, Luis Carvalho, Francesca Primas, Sophie Lemaire, Gilles Pattinston, Cecilia Gonzalez, Roshni Morneman, Chelsea Russo, and Thomas Berghafer. Thanks a lot for all your participation. It has been extremely interesting to understand that there are many things going on, from very concrete actions like training programs, sponsorships, Marie Curie grants, the powerful networks like you have explained. So thanks a lot. It has been very, very interesting to learn from you the actions you're having in place in your organizations. So now I just would like to remind the next steps. They were mentioned already at the beginning of the webinar. So there will be a survey that will be put in the website. You will receive some reminder, and it will happen likely by the end of next week. We will have as well the outcome of the webinar, so you will receive this outcome for your records, and then we will also distribute a template for the awards based on now we have to do the homework on all the ideas you have put forward. And well, that's all for this webinar. We hope to meet you all in presence in Granada, as Belen was indicated in the beginning. So this will take place from the 4th and 7th of October this year. And well, just not to forget to celebrate this day of women and girls in science, and how important are the role models. And with that, I just would like to close the webinar from our side. And I give you the word, Belen.
Just one more thing. I think we need to all switch our cameras on so we can take a photo of us. So
okay. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, please. Thank you, Elizabeth, for reminding this. So please turn on your camera.
It's not quite working. Okay.
It's okay, Elizabeth?
I mean, I don't know. I don't see that many people. Maybe it's not working. Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, okay, perfect. I see. I was looking at the wrong thing. Sorry.
Thank you. So I think that plenty of interesting proposals were raised today to increase and improve the level of participation of women in base science ecosystem, and to inspire next generations of women to be part of such a fascinating work. So we are really enthusiastic with the great figures of attendees we have had today. More than 2,060 people were registered for the webinar. And that motivates us to think that real changes can start happening with the support of this network of such a brilliant women working for big science. Furthermore, since today is the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, I would like to share with you a brief video introducing the campaign No More Matildas, an initiative of the Spanish Association of Women Researchers and Technology. So I'm going to share my screen.
Can you imagine what would have happened if Einstein had been born a woman? We probably wouldn't know who Einstein is today, because the merits of those discoveries would have been taken by a fellow male researcher. This phenomenon, known as the Matilda Effect in honor of Matilda Jocelyn Gage, who was the first activist to denounce it, highlights the injustice of systematically ignoring the findings of brilliant women scientists throughout history. Women who fell into oblivion and could not become role models for all those girls whom we have made believe that science is only for men. This is logical if we consider that the female presence in educational materials barely reaches 7.6%, a statistic that perpetuates stereotypes and probably explains why only 28.5% of students that enroll in science degrees are women. This is why we're launching No More Matildas, a movement to bring all these female scientists back where they belong, starting, why not, with textbooks. Because talent has no gender, and to ignore the one that could emerge in young girls who don't choose a science degree because they don't have mirrors in which to see themselves reflected is a cultural legacy that we should stop perpetuating. Join us, share, and help us inspire girls to know that if they want, they can. No More Matildas, an initiative of the Spanish Association of Women Researchers and Technologists.
So thanks once again. This video makes a complaint about how history has forgotten to include many relevant women working for science and how we are used to this. Generations and generations of women have grown with no women models in science. But today in this webinar, we have seen superb and inspirational women working for big science that will be those mirrors in which next generations will see themselves reflected. So once again, thanks to everyone for attending this webinar and see you in Granada.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.